welcome back to the show. I'm here with Kyle Deever. Kyle, thank you very much for being on the show, man. We made it happen.
Sure, I'll tell you what, it was a mission. I think we were a couple of cancels. You got stuck in Puerto Rico.
Yep.
That was when I think that was the Russians just checking to see our systems at that point. All those flights were crazy. And then last time I forgot and you were deathly ill.
Yeah, that worked out, man. I was dying right after Puerto Rico. That was rough, but so we made it happen.
That was a sweet space, man. I really like it.
Well, thank you. You know, my best buddy lets me do the podcast here with the agreement that I interview him and help him launch his podcast.
That's the way to. Oh, is he launching one?
Yeah, we're still not sure what it's called. We're thinking about calling it doing shots and talking shit.
Yeah, hell yeah,
kind of like that one. Still figuring out who we want to interview, but yeah, having fun. So I'm excited to have you on. And for our listeners, I try to have people on that will benefit my listeners, my friends, investors, clients. And for a little bit of a backstory, and you don't know this, but I started a podcast in 2020 called Recession Proof Real Estate Investing, right when COVID hit.
Yeah.
Perfect timing.
Fish in a barrel.
And yeah, it was fun talking to all these people. How are they going to combat COVID and this downturn and also what happened in 2007, 8, 9. So it was fun, but got boring.
Yeah. Dude, honestly, that's what I tell everybody is like, when you get to like podcast number 20 or 25, you're like, why am I doing this? I hate this. It's terrible.
Yeah.
But you get into it's like reading a book that sucks. You're like, well, I've already started. I got to keep going. Mm-hmm. And then you kind of rediscover your love for it as you keep going or you do something different.
Yeah. And I think I got almost 100 episodes in and just couldn't talk about real estate anymore. I couldn't talk about how to underwrite a multifamily deal anymore, why to buy a fourplex versus a single, just got old. But what resonated and what I started shifting towards was people's stories of overcoming issues, people's stories of when they were down and out or different struggles they had. And my listeners really appreciated that. So you and I met through Jimmy Rex's We Are the They.
Yep.
And I heard you talk about kind of your story. And so I want to get into that. You have a company, which is Performance Windows.
Yep.
We're going to talk a little bit about that. And then you have, and I'm sorry, I just spaced
Bad Bet Productions.
Bad Bet Productions.
Sometimes in the early days, especially when it wasn't making money, my accountant would call it Bad Debt Productions.
Bad Debt Productions. Bastard. There you go. Well, and I think there's a lot of people struggling right now. There's a lot of people. This economy has not been fantastic, and if you're an entrepreneur, you've struggled. First few years, I've got a startup that I've got that's kind of getting out of the startup phase, but I mean, it can be tough. And so, first of all, just wanted to jump into the meat of the story. You talked about being down and out, and then where you're at now is you're doing fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely.
So tell me about kind of where you were a few years ago and kind of where rock bottom was, because that's, I think, again, a lot of people are going to resonate with where you were. And
yeah, to be honest, it's tough to say what a rock bottom was. I think my own personal form of ADHD is that I'm forever the optimist. It's like you've heard that expression, like if you're going through hell, keep going.
Yeah.
And it's just, I think it's just my monkey brain that I just keep going, right? It's like a cockroach, impossible to kill at some point.
Nice.
But I was living in St. George. I'd gotten back from an LDS mission, and Dixie, all you need was a heartbeat and a social security number. And so I moved there from Los Angeles, and my girlfriend, who would later become my fiance, who would now is my wife of 9 years, she moved out to St. George as well. And she is the child of immigrants. Her parents both came to this country before she was born. And she always had it, and she's one of 8 kids. So when she always had this thing in her head that to repay their sacrifice, I have to get a degree in something. She wanted to be a teacher at this point that we'd met. And so before that, I didn't have any dreams of, getting a degree or anything really, honestly. It's just, I'd grown up with my father making pretty good money, a couple $100,000 a year. And I'd like an ex-wife, I'd gotten used to a certain level of lifestyle, And so once I got married, I wasn't still getting money or anything. And I had this thing that I wanted to be able to still have those nice things. Right. And so I was working 3 jobs while she was in school, and then I would do school, and I kept dropping out every semester. Usually it was accounting that put me out.
Yeah.
Like 3 or 4 times in a row, or calculus. And I kept dropping out, and I'd work. I was working for a while there at a title and escrow company during the day. And then I'd get off and I'd go serve tables. And then after serving, I would leave and I would go to Diamond Ranch Academy, which was like it's like a school for wayward children, but the parents have money. Nobody wants to be there. And I had the worst shift. I had swing shift. Or a graveyard shift where I had to put the kids to bed and I had to wake them up in the morning. So they hated me at night and they hated me in the morning. And some of those kids were effing huge. I mean, benching 400 pounds. And so I'm like, yeah, you sleep in, brother. I don't care what you do. But, and then I'd go home, I'd sleep for 4 or 5 hours and then I'd kind of get back to it. And I just had this thing in me where it's like, I just had to keep going. But I remember I started trying to start businesses. And my first business I ever started was St. George's, Utah's Dixie, and I call it Dixie Dirty Jobs.
Nice.
Started off as a cleaning company, and I remember we were cleaning this salon for like $140. And my wife, who was like 6-7 months pregnant at the time, she throws up all over the floor. I'm like, we're not doing this anymore. I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
And so then I kind of moved it over to be a junk haul business where all week, Monday through Friday, and this was all just learning how to do stuff and bootstrapping, but Monday through Friday, I'd advertise on Facebook Marketplace, I'll haul your junk. And I'd pop out during the day and I'd give them quotes. And then Saturday, I'd go rent a truck from the storage facility, like a moving truck. I'd fill it up with junk. I'd go to the dump, get rid of everything that wasn't sellable. I'd take the rest to a pawn shop and I'd just sell it to pawn shops. And I was eking by. And I tried to take shots on buying my own truck and doing these things. But I started getting into debt, bad debt, because I just, I kept taking chances on myself.
Yeah.
And, it's funny. Later on, my media production company is called Bad Bet Productions because I remember one Christmas I went back home to California and I told him I was driving with my dad and I said, I'm doing all this stuff and it's just not working. I'm starting to think that betting on myself is a bad bet.
Yeah.
And my dad goes, I think you're right. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Oh, damn.
And I was like, he tells me, he's like, you're lazy. You do a lot of thinking, but you don't actually go do it. This. And I was like, he doesn't know. Piss off. And as I get back to Utah, I think, well, maybe he's right. And then I start just doing more and more because I just had been doing so many mental reps, but then taking a nap. And it's like,
yeah.
And then I just started kind of really at my lowest point. I'll tell you, we had moved up north. In between, I was knocking doors down there for windows down in St. George for a guy. I came up to do it for somebody else up here, but I left my wife and kids in St. George while she was finishing her degree. So what I'll do is I'll take the St. George Express on Sunday night up here, get an Airbnb, spend the week, take it back down on Saturday. Then I'd spend Saturday night, Sunday with my wife and kid, come back up.
Wow.
Yeah.
How long did you do that?
Probably about 2 months, but every single week. And it was just terrible, especially if I go a week without a sale or something. And, I remember one time I got 2 sales on a Saturday and I was just pumping the air. I was so excited.
Yeah.
Go home Sunday morning. I get a call from both, like 10 minutes apart. They both canceled.
Oh, no.
And I was like, oh, wow, that sucks. And then 4 hours later, I got back on the St. George Express and headed back up north for the 4.5-hour drive. And it's just, I can't say that I had this vision or this anything. It was just I had to do something.
Right.
And eventually we move up north into a house that I couldn't afford. And that was a trend for me is I would overextend myself so we're living nice and then have to work harder.
Yeah.
Which is what I tell everybody is just get yourself so deep into debt that you have to work.
Exactly.
I'm just kidding.
All the good real estate coaches say, go buy the Mercedes, go buy the big house.
It's an investment.
You got no other choice.
And then I remember I just, I knocked for a little bit and I just couldn't do it anymore. And I went to a tech company here on Silicon Slopes. And I remember just loving it because it was this big sales culture. And they had SDR, which was BDR. And then they had AEs, or account executives. And I was the top SDR. And I just wanted to get to account executive so bad because then I'd be making $100,000 first time ever.
Nice.
I was like, oh, if I can just make it to 100,000. And they told me, okay, if you're top SDR in the company of 600 people next month, we'll make you an AE.
Right.
And I was top SDR in the company, and I was like, oh, good. I finally made it. They gave me SDR of the year, a plaque, and they kept me an SDR.
Oh, nice.
And it's like, it's like Dwight Schrute getting 13th employee of the month. I was like, dude, F you guys. And in that time, I'd gone back to knocking doors, but from like 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. And I was making more in the hour and a half after work.
Oh, wow.
Than I was in the entire 9 hours there. And I was knocking doors with a camping lantern down in Pleasant Grove, like the Crypt Keeper, trying to tell people they need windows.
Windows?
Okay, yeah. And eventually the pandemic hits, and I come home, and I was talking to my now partner Levi, who I was knocking doors with, and he was like, "Dude, let's just open our own," because the other guy was kind of screwing us. Said, "Let's open our own," and I say, "Okay. Can I wait a month, because then my son's going to be born and I'll get 6 weeks of paternity leave."
Nice.
So I can just do the 6 weeks, but still be knocking. He's like, dude, let's just do it now. And I'm like, all right, but we need an office, because he wanted to just meet at the Mexican restaurant every day. I was like, I'm not leaving without an office. I remember calling my manager at the tech company and telling him, hey, I'm leaving now. He's like, well, you'll miss out on your commissions. We won't pay your commissions this month. I was like, well, it's $140, so just keep it, buddy.
Yeah.
And we opened Performance Windows in April of 2020, right when the pandemic was really going.
Wow.
And honestly, it was unbelievable. Utah, we got real lucky that, we're a red state. People didn't want to believe as much, but everybody was home anyway. So we're knocking on doors.
That's amazing.
They're bored out of their minds. So they're like, oh yeah, we'll take an appointment.
I do need new windows.
Yep. And everybody was doing home improvements at that time. Yep. It was unbelievable. And that first year we ended up doing, and it was bootstrapped. We made it that I could only get $1,000 a week, which was still good.
Yeah.
But at one point in commissions, I'd racked up like 40, 50, 60,000 that was owed to me.
Nice.
And I was just going, I was working 6 days a week, not Sundays. And then every once in a while I'd take a day off. And I remember one time I took this day off and I get a call from my partner. He says, hey, I got a flat tire. I need you to, and I was driving with my wife down to our first date night in forever. And I had to flip a U, take her back home and go. And honestly, I will attribute all my success in this venture and any other venture to the partners that I have.
Nice.
I see so many people try and do it solo, and it's impressive. But honestly, I love being a sales guy and going out and training and growing. I hate accounting. I dropped out 4 times. I hate all the minute details, and so he was kind of tending that while I was building the sales team. That first year, we ended up doing $4 million. And then the next year, we started really growing, adding offices. We did 16 million.
Wow.
The following year we did 32 million. And then last year we ended up doing about 61-ish million.
Wow.
And this year, we're not going to quite have our double up now. So we're going to do about 85 to 90 million this year. So
that's huge.
Yeah, it's been insane.
That's awesome.
To answer your question about rock bottom, I was about $140,000 in just the worst kind of debt.
Wow.
I owed my old man 40 G's, my younger sister $20,000. I had a 27% interest loan on my truck tires, which I got out with that first stimulus check. Actually, that was awesome.
Nice.
But my partner Levi, he asked me that time, I was like, why don't you just declare bankruptcy? And I'm like, it'll get better. We'll make money somehow.
Yeah.
And that's how it's always been. Is just it'll happen. Just
got to keep working.
Be ready for it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love that story. And that's what I heard when you were talking on Jimmy Rex's group. There's a lot to unpack there. What I find interesting is when I got into real estate, I was hoping just to make $100,000 a year.
Yeah.
Dude.
A golden number.
Freaking, you've made it. If you're making $100,000 a year. And I think I made $70,000 my first year and like 105 my second year in real estate, and haven't looked back since. But it's interesting what our goals are. And in real estate, same issue. You got sales fall through. I mean, I knocked doors. I sold alarms, sold pest control. I remember having like 11 sale day one time, and then like half of them canceled.
It's just debilitating. It hurts.
It's rough. Or in real estate, you sell a home, it goes under contract, and And I've had months where I've had everything fall out of contract. That actually happened with COVID.
Yeah.
I had these big multifamily deals all over the country I was doing, and the shutdown happened. People panicked, and we canceled everything. So my pending income went from here to zero. I actually started a painting company in 2020. And it was funny, my ex-wife was like, "Why are you painting all the time?" And I'm like, was like worried to tell her that we had no income coming
bills,
in. I'm like, I'm just trying to hustle.
Yeah.
Just trying to hustle, But yeah, so it's interesting, and now you're not hoping to make 100,000 a year.
Oh yeah. If I made less than 100,000 in a month, I'd be screwed.
There you go.
Just with where and it is crazy, right? Because now let's say it all went away. My bar could never now be 100,000 in a year. It could never, it's just now I could only look at jobs that are and it is always interesting. You watch The Big Short.
Yeah.
Yeah, great movie, right?
Yep.
And you watch those investment bankers or those mortgage guys who were, jackasses and, talking about the girls on the pole and everything. And at the end of the movie, they're walking into a job fair looking at like Burger King. I'm like, I don't think it's possible. I don't think it's impossible to go from one lifestyle to another, don't you think? Like, it's just, you kind of become
hard.
You kind of become prisoner to the lifestyle that you've created, but it's also a driver.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how people. I don't know. At some point, people don't have a choice, but taking a significant step back in lifestyle would be incredibly difficult.
Yeah, I've actually done it these last few years. Got a divorce. Gave a huge amount of our money to her so that I could retain my company.
Yeah,
which meant also that I didn't have as much cash in the bank, and it is hard. It's really hard, and there's lots of quotes that go out. There's a lot of people that just can't do it or won't do it. Then there's other people that figure out how to make that money again.
Yeah, it's just, it's scary for sure. Yeah, but I think, to my detriment, you ever see Bill Gates on the Ellen show?
Mm-hmm.
When she's like, let's name these random items. You tell us how much it is. And it's like cup of noodle. And he's like, $7. And we're like, no. Yeah, it's like you kind of forget what it's like.
Mm-hmm.
And having to relearn that, I don't know, it's like relearning to walk. From your experience, what were some of the, one, there's just, for one, the humble pie of having to do it and people seeing you and things, which sucks, especially when you're doing big things and you're a big guy and having to take a step back and people seeing that. But humility and ego aside, what do you start cutting immediately? What goes and how do people make those decisions quick?
You eat a lot less sushi.
Yeah,
Sushi's expensive. I started looking at my bills. So I have a bookkeeper that works for me. She's one of my employees, and I said, okay, we got to break down my spending. Looking at everything I spend money on, I was like, okay, sushi is one of them.
Go.
All the TV subscriptions.
Yeah.
And yeah, just a lot of stuff that you spend money on. And one thing that I did when I was bootstrapping my real estate career is made sure that I always made myself poor by investing.
Yeah.
And so what I've tried to do is control my spending as I kept making more and more money and really get rid of that money so that I can't go spend it on stupid stuff. I've bought dumb stuff. I had a Range Rover and a Hellcat and a few different things, lots of vacations. But if you're disciplined at the beginning when the money's coming in, to put that away in the investment account, you just can't spend it.
It's tough though, dude, because
I'm not disciplined enough.
Yeah. That's the thing is I'd have to honey hole my money away for myself because I'm a piece of shit. I like to go to Vegas a lot.
Yep.
I like to, I gamble. I always tell myself in my brain like, if it all goes away, at least with all these experiences. But I'm sure if it all went away, I was like, what? Why did I do that to myself? What a piece of shit.
Yep. No, you do. I knew that I was not disciplined enough to just not spend it on fun stuff.
But doesn't it just feel like it's going to go on forever?
Yeah. My best year I was making $100,000 a month.
Yeah.
In 2018, right before I started my investment firm. And yeah, there's stuff that you start spending money and you're like, damn, this is fun.
Yeah.
Thankfully, I just, again, made myself poor by buying investment properties and that saved me for sure. But yeah, and it's interesting, and this is something I'm kind of curious about. I noticed it myself, and I think I caught it pretty quick, but there's some people that were making way more money than me in my brokerage, like $250,000 a month at times or more. And their attitude about others and how they viewed themselves got just extremely arrogant. So I'm curious if you've caught yourself changing how you treat people or being tempted to treat others differently, because when you make a lot of money, it kind of goes to your head.
Well, I do demand that nobody's allowed to make eye contact with me at the company. I'm just kidding. No, honestly, I mean, I've dressed up for you today. Usually I'm in sweat shorts and people think I'm a bum until we kind of get talking. And I think that's something that has really been lucky for me, is that I'm so in my business, which is a lot of knockers and then a lot of closers, right? But I spend most of my days being around people that are worried about making their rent and are, are grinding to change their lives and things, that it's impossible for me to be it's impossible for me to be Howard Hughes up in a tower looking down on people.
Yeah.
That's the big thing that Levi and I have done, is that it would be tempting to start working on the business instead of in the business.
Yeah.
Which it would, the kind of money we make, we could do it, but it just, we don't want to. We're still young, Even me, if I'm on day 4 of vacation, I'm like, I got to get home, because in this business is where I'm useful as a father. I love my kids. I'm useful as a husband. I'm useful as
you have how many
a friend.
Kids?
3 kids.
3 kids. That's right.
I'm useful as a friend, but I'm also very useful. I've built the skill set as running this business, and I think everybody likes to be where they're useful. And, And so to answer your question, it hasn't been hard for me to. I don't walk around. You wouldn't know I have money until we kind of really got into it.
I love that. I bought a nice car for myself in 2018. It's a Hellcat. It was just my dream car. I wasn't trying to show off, really. I mean, I got the color I wanted, purple, because of the old Cudas that were purple. And I had a few friends be like, "Dude, you're so arrogant. Like, why would you buy a car like that just to show off?" And I was like, I don't even think about it like that. I just bought it because of my dream car. It's 700 horsepower, I
think that's where I've gotten, because I buy nice stuff. Like, I've got my Raptor and everything. Stuff that I just, I always.
Those are fun, though.
Yeah, fun. But I remember I used to drive around and not be envious, but I'd drive around big neighborhoods when I was just broke as shit. And just be like, I want to go knock on that guy's door and know what he does, and I'll come work for him for free, just so I can kind of come up in the business that he did. And even now, I remember there was a time about a year ago where the business was already really taken off, and I stopped by the office for something. I forgot something at the office, and across the way was this little small office, and it was like 11:30 at night, and there was a guy working. I could just see the lights on. I could see him working. I was envious of him that he had something to be doing at 11:30. I was like, wow, I'm not doing jack shit. I read something that, and it kind of correlates to 2 phases of my life, is like, successful people work their ass off and they feel like they're lazy, and unsuccessful people are those who don't do much work and think that they work to the bone. And that's really how I was before my dad kind of called me out on things. And
interesting. Because it seems like you've always had a number of jobs, but was it the work ethic or the follow through to like make those?
Follow through's always been tough. Like I said, I think every entrepreneur's got some kind of ADHD. Mine is like, I'll get these big, exciting ideas, like I should start a diet today or something, and then 3 or 4 days, I'm like, I don't want to do that anymore. And that's why having a partner like Levi, who's he's got ADHD too, but he's got more like anxiety. Like he needs to see something all the way through.
Okay.
And I really need that in my life, because I'm like, I don't want to do that anymore.
Sounds like he's the yin to your yang, like
Big
a good
time.
partner. And what's interesting is my partner, Lyndon, actually his podcast just released yesterday, where we kind of talked about differences. And, I'm the sales guy. I'm the raising all the money guy, kind of finding projects. And then he's kind of been the operations, accounting, taxes, like really, really important stuff that the worst stuff that I don't understand, don't really want to. Could do it if you put a gun to my head, maybe. But the right partner makes all the difference, and we've been stolen from by partners. And so let's talk a little bit about that. Like you and Levi working together. You mentioned earlier, and I just love it. Like the right partner absolutely matters. And
being in a partnership, as if you've been in them, sounds like it sucks. Yeah, it sucks. And it's 2 alpha dudes a lot of the time. That's been my case, right? 2 alpha dudes, and both of us think we're right most of the time. Both of us are probably right. It's just about a good, better, best. And what I've been really lucky to, a couple things. One, he's like 280 and can bench like 500 pounds. So we've never needed to come to blows. I still think I could whip his ass, but we've never gotten that far.
Nice.
But the real thing, honestly, is like we both just had this understanding of like mutual destruction. Like, it's like a marriage where like I know I could say whatever I got in my head, but also I won't say the thing that's too far and just out of spite or anger, because then he as a man must respond, and then we blow this whole thing up, and there's too many people who count on us. And I remember, you kind of have these moments of that kind of really stick out to you. And I was living in a shitty house over in Saratoga Springs when we started this whole thing, but it was hard. And I remember sitting on the front porch and the sun was on my face and my kids were running around. I remember thinking that it sucked. I didn't want to do it anymore, but he hasn't quit on me, which means he somewhere in his mind is thinking about my wife and children.
Yeah.
And what it means for me and mine. So I can't quit on him because it's also my responsibility to kind of do those things. And if you get that kind of thing that you both go in with full intention to change it, then that's what a partnership is,
No, I love that. Not quitting on each other. And there's times when you want to quit, maybe he's strong, and times when he's not doing as well, and you've got his back. And that's
100%. And it's like, sometimes I'm like, oh, I don't want to expand the business right now. We need to fortify and get strong. It's like, no, we need to grow. And we do. And vice versa, where he's not feeling it and I say we need, and it's been a truly rewarding experience. More than just financially, I've learned a lot.
That's awesome. Yeah, you guys have grown huge. Say the numbers one more time. You went from
4 to 16 to 32 to 60, and then this year should be 85 to 90.
Almost doubling your business every year until this last year. Yeah. That's awesome. That's huge.
Yeah, it's been good for us.
What would you say is the number one or two things that's really allowed you to grow that fast and grow that big?
For sure, mine. I mean, he and I are, not to pat ourselves on the back there, but we're smart and we're very in the business. So even to this day, it's 4 years, 5 years. I know what he's going to say. He knows what I'm going to say, but we call each other on all the decisions, right? We just call each other and say, hey, I'm going to go bust this guy. What do you think? And blah, 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 blah. Or, hey, I want to do this. No, you shouldn't. And then we'll even get into a little bit of a fight about it. And then it's constant communication with somebody else, right? Who's in the business. That's one. Then two has just been perseverance. I mean, in what's it called? Atomic Habits, right? He talks about the best bodybuilders aren't the guys who do this new fun and exciting lift all the time. It's the guy who can do the same lift over and over and over again. That's the guy that's gonna be the best. And that's what it is like I explained to guys. I've got guys this year who are 25 years old who will make $1 million this year.
Wow.
Which is gross, because when I was 25, I would have done horrible things to make $1 million, right? And
is that just knocking doors, or are they managing
market owners, guys running teams? Yeah. Our highest closer will probably make somewhere in the $600,000 to $700,000 range, which is great. I mean, we go year round. It's a good setup. But I tell them, I'm like, you have this meteoric rise where you go from knocker, where you're making $10,000, $15,000 a month, to closer, where you're making $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a month, to market owner, and then you kind of just stay at market owner for a long time, and then we've got other rules. But if you can deal with that routineness and rote repetition, just doing the same thing, if you can deal with that, you will change your lives. Period.
I love that. In real estate, or with my coach, we call it a repetitive boredom. Just, it's going to be boring, and if you get really good at it, and being bored for 3, 4, 5 hours a day, make huge amounts of money.
And that's the thing, is like, it's the real estate agents I was telling you before we started that I got my real estate license and practice for all of about a month and a half, 2 months. But it's the ones that can stay in there for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years and just do it over and over. Can't be beat.
Yeah. It's you're exactly right. I remember my coach telling me, hey, just wait till year 4 or 5. We start getting a lot of repeat referral business. People will know, and literally clockwork. Year 5, I was like, people just coming out of the woodwork giving me referrals. And it was so nice, because before that, it was a grind. I cold called 4 hours a day, every single day for 7 years to get my real estate business going. A lot.
I think, and I may be giving it to the wrong person, but I think it was a guy named Donnie Moser. I don't know. But he goes out to New York and he's talking to the guy who's running he's this big door-to-door guy. And he's talking to this guy he's out at the NFL headquarters. He's talking to this guy who's in charge of all the TV rights. And he's like, job must suck. He's like, oh, it's terrible. I hate it. I have to fight with all these people all the time. And he's like, well, how do you stay in it? And he's like, oh, that's easy. Every 4 years, I pop my head up and I ask myself 4 questions. And I forget what the 4 were, but something along the lines of, am I paid fairly for what I do? Do I like the people I work with? Do I agree with the vision of what's going forward? And whatever the 4th question was. Yeah. And if all 4 are yes, then I put my head back down. I don't ask for another 4 years. Mm-hmm. That's why I tell all my knockers and closers too, is that, 4 years is too long of a cycle, but you tell yourself, I'm going to ask myself this every 1 year or 6 months, these 4 questions. And if they're all yes, I put my head down. And I don't ask myself those questions in the middle of an effing Wednesday when I haven't been paid in a week and life sucks and it's hot. You don't ask yourself those questions when it sucks. You ask yourself those questions in a moment of peace and clarity, and then you take those answers till the bank.
I love that. And just keep your head down and keep working and keep working. And that's what a lot of people, I had to knock doors for 4 summers. They'd have a couple bad days and just quit.
Yeah.
And they had already made great money that summer, if they just stick it out, a few more tough days.
And you see people do it to themselves. I mean, they'll have an explosive first month because it's exciting. Then they think they're God's gift to pest control or alarms or windows. Yep. And so then they stop doing the things that made them successful. They have less success. And instead of going back to what made them successful, they just try and change other parts of it.
They get stuck.
It's like getting lost in the woods. And instead of going back the way you came, thinking, I can find my way out by going through.
Yeah.
And it's not that.
Yeah.
You got to do the thing. You got to dance with the one who took you.
Yeah, and usually there's just a couple things that'll make you successful. For real estate, it's talk to 30 people a day. Jimmy Rex was in here and he's like, look, 2 things, like talk to 30 people a day and then just get out and talk about yourself, your brand, and be sincerely interested in other people. Jimmy's amazing at that. What would you say for door knocking, like top 2 or 3 things, if I'm brand new door knocker, want to come work for you, top 2 or 3 things, just basics that are going to make me successful?
A couple of things is that practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes permanent. And if you practice it and do it the wrong way over and over and over again, then when I come in and teach you the right way, it's going to feel foreign and wrong and you won't do it. Mm-hmm. And so just being willing to be coached by those who have gone before you, know what they're doing, and willing to do it over and over and over again till you can't get it wrong. The other thing, though, is that this is in sales in general, is that what I'm selling is not a product. I'm not selling an appointment. I'm selling excitement about the thing that I'm doing. Mm-hmm. All I'm selling is excitement. I've got 5 minutes at the door to make you excited about an appointment where later we'll get you excited about something else. But that means that all of my paraverbals and nonverbals are, hey, how are you? Real quick, my name is Kyle. I tell my people, I said, I want you to be a character, not a caricature. I don't want you to be, well, hiya, how are you? I don't want that. But what I do want is for you to be, I always give the example of like David Goggins, where when he's on mile like 30 or 40, mm-hmm. David can't take it anymore. So he becomes this character who is Goggins. Yeah. And Goggins can run 200 miles.
Yeah.
And it's still him, but it's the version of him that can run 200 miles.
Absolutely.
And that's the same thing I tell all my salespeople is I still want you to be you. I don't want you to be not you, but I want you to be the version of you that doesn't care about knocking every single door, doesn't care if they open the door rude or aggressively. It's just, this is the version of me that sells windows, right? Yeah. And that's how it has to be for anybody getting into sales, is that I need to be the version of me that does that thing.
I think that's one of the best descriptions I've heard. When I got in the doors, I was like, hey, being happy and smiley, that's just not me.
Yep.
I'm shy, introverted, don't like to be animated. One of my first brokers, he gave me the same advice. He's like, you got to be excited, man. He's like, you are boring as hell. Mm-hmm. He's like, you are so monotone. And he gave me a challenge. He's like, hey, if you want to fix this, you want to actually learn how to sell, start sounding excited in every conversation. So you go to the gas station, you're buying a Monster, you better sound excited to that gas station. Ask her employee and ask her how her day is. And at the gym, you're talking to people, you're going to feel ridiculous. But I was so bad and monotone that I needed it. And literally my sales changed.
And that's what I tell everybody always is, of course, you have to be willing to do it. When people tell me that's just not who I am, say, well, you got to make it who you are for sure. Because if you're not getting better, you're getting worse. There is no stasis in this thing. The other big thing I'll tell people on that same point is that you either every door is a transaction. You're either buying or you're selling. And if they open the door, or if you're a real estate agent, if you're making a call and they answer the phone aggressively, whatever, they open the door and they're a dick, and you then go into your withdrawn kind of mouse, you just want to get off this door, that means that I just bought. And I refuse to buy. I'm not here to buy. I only sell. I give an example. I had a guy open the door one time and said, "What the hell do you want?" I said, "I'll tell you what the hell I want. Real quick, my name is Kyle," because it's my job to sell. I always tell people, what's the worst thing that could happen to you? Well, they could murder you, but what are the chances? So low, who cares?
Doesn't matter.
Yeah. But, it's for the jokes there. But what I tell them is the worst thing they can do is say, "What are you, an idiot? Can't you see my nose? Get out of here."
Yeah.
Right? What's the best thing that could happen? Well, you can make a sale that'll make you $1,000. And if I could go to any casino in America and I sit down at the table, and if I lose, they call me an idiot, and I win, they give me $1,000, I would never leave that place. It's the greatest gamble in human history.
Yep. I love it. And for the people saying, "Hey, that's just not me." Well, you get excited about something.
Yep.
Like, think about what gets you excited. Is it fast cars? Is it going to Vegas? Is it music? And there's some point in your life when you sound excited. If you want to get good at selling, you just have to sound excited when you sell and be enthusiastic. And it was funny. We were just talking about active selling. So my manager was Chase.
Yep.
And Vess, they were training, and Vess is like, "Hey, do it this way." And Chase is like, "No, do it this way." And Chase would always sound really enthusiastic. And Vess it was funny though, because Chase is like, "Well, who sold more last summer?"
Yeah, scoreboard.
He did. He did. And he was just that much more enthusiastic than Vess. Vess knew how to sell, but Chase was just a little bit better at the nonverbals, at the face changes, at just being enthusiastic and sounding interesting. And that's why he sold 400 or 500 every single summer.
And that's what it's one of those choose your heart situations, right? Like, marriage is hard, divorce is hard, choose your hard, right?
Mm-hmm.
Being a fat ass is hard, going to the gym is hard, choose your hard. I always explain that learning to be better and changing and improving is hard. Taking the bus is hard. And for me, I'm always I'd prefer to sound dumb and improve and get better than I would to be cool and chill and not be improving.
I love that. I mean, yeah, it's hard being poor.
Yeah.
You might as well learn how to sell.
I always tell people is like, they say money doesn't buy happiness, but the fact of the matter is it's true. I mean, if you're a miserable bastard, then you're a miserable bastard. It doesn't matter, right? But money gives you the ability to not worry about money anymore, which is a main source of what a lot of people fight about. And just is that I don't worry about money, and so now I get to worry about my other things.
Yeah. It's also really hard to help people if you're just fighting for survival.
Yep, 100%.
Once you have your basic needs taken care of, you can start helping other people, doing things for other people, training other people how to make money. But if you're just focused on your own sales, I just got to get these, there's a lot less you can do for others. Also, I've never been unhappy on a jet ski.
Yeah, exactly. Right? That's an old Daniel Tosh bit.
Yep.
I always do that in my meetings where you
I've
can't be
never been
unhappy
on a jet ski. Yeah. So, no, you can help a lot more other people if you're successful. And I think everyone has the duty to be successful and be the best you can. And what I like to do is, we've talked a lot about business, a lot of stuff you overcome. I really like to focus on family as well. My thing is, I love being a dad.
Yep.
Absolutely love it. I feel like I have a duty to teach my kids, train my kids, be successful so they have opportunities to learn what success is. You've got 3 kids. What are their ages?
8-year-old little girl, a 4-year-old little boy, and a 2-year-old little girl.
Nice.
And I'm done. I tried to stop after the 2, but she tricked me. So
okay, there you go. So what are some things that you enjoy as a dad? And also, what are some things you want to teach your kids? What's important to you?
Yeah, it's tough. When I was growing up, so my father, he worked on movies my whole life, from the time I was like in 5th grade or so. So he'd be gone 3-4 months at a time. Come home in time to, whoop my ass and hang out for a little bit, and then he's back on another job, right? And so, it was always important to me to be around. It's like the NFL. It's like one of your best abilities is availability. Mm-hmm. And you get home from the end of a day and you're like, I just want to relax, but I'm lucky enough too. It's also about how you use your money. Is like we've got this nanny that we love, and she's there 8 hours a day, and she comes on every vacation with us, and she does all these things so that I get to do the things that are fun and exciting, and I don't have to worry if one of the kids is, needing a change or whatever it is,
Yeah.
And so I just, I want to give them experiences and be around. It's just
Quality
about being
time.
around, quality time. Yeah. And it's not always going to be on a Wednesday or Thursday when I come home and toasted, but it is going to be that if I'm going to have time not working, I go spend it with the kids.
I love that. That's actually a big thing for me. So I've got 50-50 custody of my kids, and I have them every Wednesday. So they'll come home from their mom's house, or I'll get them after school Wednesdays. And about 6 months ago, I started taking Wednesday afternoons off because they hadn't seen me in 2-3 days. And that alone, like when they realized that I had made a 3-4 hour gap priority for them, like it was time to play, time to talk, time to hang out, ride bikes. That's actually one of the coolest things I've done as a dad. And then I work Wednesday evening. I probably have appointments, but just a few hours, the first time I see them for the week. And I don't work usually weekends when I have them. So I'm working like crazy the days I don't have them. I work from 8 a.m. to 9-10 p.m. Days that I have them, I've got set times where I absolutely do not answer the phone. And I feel, the podcast I just released a couple days ago with Lyndon, we talked about being present with your kids. I'm sure you get a million calls all the time. And if
that's how I make all my money is just on the phone all the time.
On the phone. But if you're with your kids, they especially when they get older, they can tell like, hey, Dad, you're not present. You're not here. And so that was one of the things, actually, our business coach, Lyndon and I had a business coach last year, and great dude. And he's like, you have to just say no at one point and be present with your families. And I know for Lyndon, that's paid off a ton, myself as well.
Yeah, it's tough. That's the other thing is like, even with a spouse, I often wrestle with this in my own internal brain is like at home, you're just dad or you're just some guy, you're the husband, but whatever it is. But at work, you're this guy who can fix every problem and also you say something and it gets done. Right. And so it's hard then sometimes just mentally to come home and, I can't tell my wife, hey, go do that thing right because then
not an employee.
She'll tell me to get lost.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that's something I've struggled with mentally sometimes. I mean, aside from just coming home and being tired or being on my phone and getting into a slog of things. But I think, I think a lot of times people will say, well, I do it for them. And then they don't think about them the whole day or, I don't know. I don't know how I wrestle with it. One thing I did do that made a big difference for me that I fully recommend is getting, how old are your kids?
11 and 7.
Okay. So yeah, really good age for my wife or my daughter. I got her a Gab watch. Yeah. I get to just text with her and it's just like, oh, she's at school and I can, even if it's just emojis, it's like, oh, I get to tell my daughter I love her or something like that. You know what I mean?
That's fun. I love that. I've got my daughter's cell phone last year. Just got Liam, my younger one, a watch.
Yeah.
And
it's just fun to be able to communicate like, oh, this is my kid. And it's always crazy to me. Like I love my kids. I love being a dad. And as you just think to yourself, like this kid used to not be able to pick up their head and now she's calling me fat. Yeah. And it's hilarious to me. I love it. It's just, and they're so comfortable. My kids they're little turds because they're so comfortable being themselves and being crazy kids and jumping on me and fighting with me and doing all those things because I've just made it a space where, I grew up, I wouldn't say it's hard discipline, but I did grow up in a place where, you couldn't really, I don't know how your dad was. My dad, I always give him the excuse of like, oh, he's a great dad, bad husband, My parents are separated now and I always but he wasn't there and it's tough, dude, because it's like, well, he's got to make a living. He's got to provide for us. But you think to yourself, like, if Elon Musk called me today and was like, hey, listen, I need you to be my right-hand man, but you got to leave your kids and not be around, like, dude, hell no. Yeah. Couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I have to find something else. And so it's a constant struggle because the one thing I remember from business ethics class is that it is the corporation's responsibility to give the maximum income to the investors. And if I'm the corporation and the investors are my wife and children, it's my responsibility to provide them with the best life possible. but also that best life includes me being in it.
I love that. I think that's huge. And actually, a couple of my investors who were mentors of mine and people I looked up to, before I even knew them, I saw them on stage at real estate training, and they said, okay, I set aside time for my kids. A lot of people do that. But like 4 of them all went on 1-year sabbaticals.
Oof.
So I don't know if you could imagine like how much money you're making right now.
Yeah.
Push everything on pause. I mean, you can still work throughout the day, but they traveled the world with their kids. They took their kids out of school, traveled the world for an entire year.
Did you hear one of them? Did you talk about Casey Baugh or no?
Mm-mm.
So do you know who Casey Baugh is?
Mm-hmm.
He talks about how he left for 6 months or a year or something all over Europe. Cost him $700,000. He was doing private jets all over.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time he got back, his net worth had increased.
That's awesome.
That's awesome, right?
That's awesome.
Yeah, but
all of these guys, they're all like, I don't know, that they're still worth a ton of money.
Yeah.
They still make over $1 million a year, each of them. But they said, out of my kids' childhood, this is the one thing I would not trade for the world.
Yeah. But here's something that I've often struggled with is, for me, I make a few million a year right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to explain to my daughter, like we go to Disneyland all the time. And when you say, okay, we're going to Disneyland, she goes, oh, cool. Like, what? No, you can't do. So how do you battle giving them everything you want to give them without them being little shitheads?
You got to listen to Dave Allred's podcast. We talked about that because that's been, like my ex-wife and her mom, very well off.
Yeah.
Give the kids everything. I give my kids everything. But, number one, their job is to get straight A's.
Yep.
That is their job as a kid. Number two, when they're teenagers, they will have a job.
Yep. Got to have
and
a job.
Dave has them investing in businesses, investing their money. If they want to buy a car, they got to come up with a down payment and he'll match it. So, kind of taking a few things from Dave's playbook. My first broker as well in Pleasant Grove, he did not buy them nice clothes.
Yeah.
Not buy them nice cars. He helped them with jobs.
That's
their
tough.
vacation budget was out of this world.
Yeah.
Like they're going on, $150,000 worth of vacations every year. Which nowadays it's probably not as much, but back then that's a lot of money. 20 years ago, that was a lot of money. So he gave them experiences, but not all the toys and all the nice clothes and the nice cars to kind of instill in them, okay, if I want what my friend has, I got to go work for it.
Do you find yourself ever, and not to take too much of a tangent on it, but I like asking this, is you find yourself ever like being hypocritical with your kids in that when I got married, me and my wife, I moved to Utah. I said she's got to move here, all away from all the family. We are our own person now. Mm-hmm. If we stayed in California, then you wouldn't be my wife. You'd be their daughter and their sister and all these things. Mm-hmm. So we're moving. We're going this. We're going to go blaze our own paths. And but when my kids grow up, I'm like, don't move away. Stay close.
I think all parents do that. I think anyone that's tough. And, also having them just have a job is like, okay, Heidi's 11. At 11, I was out mowing lawn. At 10, I was out mowing my neighbor's lawns. Didn't have a job this summer, So it's hard. It's hard to know how hard to push.
You don't want to make them soft, but it's like in my brain the whole time I've just told myself like what happened to me was my dad made great money and then I didn't have that money anymore, so I wanted to go get it. In my brain, I think to myself at some point, to an extent, I got to cut them off once they're married and things, and they'll want that same thing.
Yeah. And I think, we're always trying to do better than our parents did. My parents never taught me about finances, like clueless, like when I left home. And so, do better than your dad did, like help explain to your kids, like, here's the lifestyle we have. Here's how I budget. Here's what things cost. And what do you want? And so we actually have been working on dream boards for our kids. My 7-year-old has a dream board. He wants to buy a Cybertruck.
Yeah.
So we started saving. I'm like, you better start saving now. And so working on goals. I've played Dave Ramsey's The Money Game for kids with the kids.
I'll tell you what, Dave Ramsey's kind of a thorn in my side now because of how much we run credit for all the windows and things. But when I was in the thick of my debt, I love Ramsey.
Yeah.
I love him.
He's great for getting out of debt.
Yeah.
Terrible investment advice. I went viral on my buddy's podcast for saying Dave Ramsey's an idiot.
Yeah.
Probably not the right thing to say. What I should have said is he gives really good advice for people that want to get out of debt, really bad advice for people that
are financially savvy
and that can invest well. There's good debt.
But I loved, especially now he always has to have a co-host because I think he said some stuff when COVID kicked off that he got a little trouble. But it's just, I loved listening to people, the debt-free scream. I just love it.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah. Being debt-free is powerful. I remember hitting that my 4th year in real estate.
Yeah.
Finally paid everything off. And I was like, damn, this feels good.
Yeah.
Feels really good. Well, listen, we don't have a lot of time left. I really appreciate you being on the show. I really like talking to people that have bootstrapped their companies and who are good dads as well. And at the end of the day, again, my podcast got really boring. Yeah. And what I love is talking about people overcoming life challenges, people being good parents, and really striving to be better themselves. So I think one of the common things you and I have in common is we just wanted to make 100,000 one day, both way past that now. Yeah. And a lot of that's work ethic and just not giving up. Another thing is just spending time with our kids. That's so important to me. And then also, as having a startup, what really propelled you to be successful? And I would say, just not giving up and persisting, but also I can tell you really understand how to sell. And I didn't expect that today. And you gave one of the best descriptions I've heard of, like, if I was a door knocker, what do I need to learn how to do? Not be boring.
Yeah. Yeah.
So have you read Sell or Be Sold?
Yeah, of course.
That's exactly what you were talking about. Everyone's selling. And I used to tell myself when I was calling for sale by owners, Jimmy Rex talks a lot about calling for sale by owners. It's not fun.
Yeah.
But it's like either they're selling you and they're going to get you off the phone, or you're going to sell them and you're going to get an appointment with them.
Right.
Everyone's selling. If you want to have sex with your wife, you got to sell her on it.
Yep.
Right. And it starts before that, everything else you do. So no matter what you're doing in life, you're selling. And I really love that advice. And I appreciate being on the show, man.
Hey, Sam, it's been I'll tell you, I've done a lot of podcasts, but this was a ton of fun, man. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.